What is up, everyone? My name is Michael Pohl with Bay Area Aquatics, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about how I set up my dirted tank, and what I did, and how you can set one up as well. Alright, so dirted tanks are one of those things that I've been seeing in the hobby pretty much as soon as I got into it, which has only been a few years to be fair, but there's a lot of talk about it, and I see people that either love it or they hate it, and I very rarely see people in between. There's a lot of people like me that haven't tried it, and I'm also one of those people that likes to try things and see things for myself, even if I know I'm not going to like it, even if I know there's a problem with it. I like to be able to see that in person and kind of experience it on my own. Out of all my friends with fish tanks, about half of them said they liked it, half of them said they didn't, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to try it. That's going to be the only way to tell whether or not I like it, and I started doing a little bit of research. Now, when I think of plants on YouTube, the first person I think of is Bentley Pasco, so I sent him a message as well as watched a couple of his videos. He gave a big, long presentation on plants for a fish club that he had. He's done a couple of videos on dirted tanks and things like that in the past, and then I asked him some questions after I watched those videos about things that he had said, and mainly, the big thing that I took away from it was he wasn't a fan of them. It was his second favorite. He prefers the aqua soil because he's lazier, and he had a couple of tricks for dirty tanks. But again, I wanted to try it, so I went ahead and tried it. Now, one of the things that I read online, this wasn't a tip from Bentley, but this was a tip from somewhere else, and I can't find it, but it was an old fish forum a couple years ago. They recommended using egg crate in the front. Just a couple rows of egg crate, and then cut the very front at like a 45-degree angle so it kind of wraps around the silicone. Put that right in the front, filled out with your substrate, or with your capping material, and so that way you prevent the dirt creep after a couple of months of the dirt kind of making its way towards the front of the tank. I'm not a big fan of that look. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I had a spare piece of egg crate, so I figured why not try it. If you don't have one, I wouldn't necessarily go buy one to try it, but it wouldn't hurt. It's not super expensive, and if you have pieces laying around, I definitely would at least try it. I'm curious to see how it holds up over the next couple of months, but it seemed like an interesting idea, and since I had some, I decided to go ahead and try it. After that, I started adding dirt to my tanks before I realized I forgot the next step. I went ahead and added some crushed lava rocks. Now, this was a recommendation of Bentley's because I plan on putting some heavy stem feeding plants in there, and he said that for the stem plants, a lot of times with dirted tanks, especially with a sand cap, which I was planning on doing, the roots tend to get choked out and it messes with the plants and it gives the plants trouble growing. So having crushed up lava rock in the bed, just a single layer of it, gives them kind of some caves and cavities to grow into and get nutrients from, a little bit of water, etc. And so I figured, why not? I have a bag of lava rocks, it's cheap. Now, I couldn't find any lava rocks small enough. I could only find them like golf ball size. So I went ahead and crushed mine with a mallet. Worked just fine. You could do this with a brick or a regular hammer. One thing I do recommend is safety glasses. It definitely spreads stuff all over the place, and it does make kind of a mess, but I got them down to about the size that I wanted, and then covered the entire tank in a layer of these crushed lava rock. Next thing I did was I layered organic potting soil. Organic's an important part. You want organic soil right over the lava rocks for me. I didn't do a super thick layer. I pretty much filled in around the lava rocks and just a little bit above them, and that was it. I would say it's probably about 1/4 of an inch, maybe half an inch. I didn't do a big like 1-inch dirt thing like a lot of people do. This tank's probably only going to be set up for 6 months to a year, to be honest, but I wanted to try it, and I didn't really see the point in doing a super thick layer myself. Plus, it's just a 10-gallon tank, so I'm limited on space already. If it was a 75-gallon or something, maybe do a bigger dirt cap, but for the 10-gallon, 1/4 inch, half inch, it's about all I need. Next thing I did was I put the substrate on top of the dirt. This is another reason why I chose to go dirt versus a aquatic soil, is because for this specific tank, I wanted a mixture of play sand, or pool filter sand, same thing, and some pea gravel for kind of a more natural look. I didn't want the look of the aquatic soil. So I specifically wanted this cap, and I figured I'm gonna go ahead and try the dirt cap and see how I like it. Next thing I did was I put a plate in the tank and I filled the tank up with water. You could do this either with a plastic bag or paper towels or whatever, but you just want to make sure that you're not disturbing the surface. After that, I put the heater in it and put a hang-on back filter in the front because I was planning on running a sponge filter, but I didn't want to move the cycled sponge filter over yet. And so I left it overnight because it was a little bit cloudy. I'm thinking, okay, the polyfill in the hang-on back filter is going to get the last little bit of the clouds out, and then I can go plant it the next morning, run the polyfill for another day or two, and then put the fish in it. Well, I should have just scaped it that night, and I recommend just scaping it right away. I came back the next morning and it was like tea. It was super dark and cloudy, couldn't really see anything, and so I said, okay, obviously this wasn't working the way I thought. Now going back and looking at everyone that was telling me, I should have known this was going to happen. Everyone warned me about it, but I didn't pay close attention or something, or forgot, whatever it was, and I waited to plant till the next day. So I went ahead and planted and scaped the tank, and then I did 3 or 4 water changes until the water was clear and I got most of that debris and tannins and stuff out. Again, I put the hang-on back filter on the tank because I wanted to kind of get the water cycled. I wanted the plants to be able to stay at the tropical temperatures, so I had the heater in there, and I wanted the tank to just kind of run for a couple of days and see how it worked. Before I put the fish back in it. They were in a side tank, and the tank got a little bit cloudier the next day, but it gradually improved. And after a couple of days, I went ahead and added the coolie loaches and my scarlet batis back into the tank. The water was a little cloudy and a little tanniny for a couple of days. It's still got a little bit of tannins in it. It's been set up for probably about a week and a half now, but it's not like a super dark tannin. It's kind of like if you had like one, maybe half of a catappa almond leaf or something in there. It's not very dark, but there is a little bit something there. Some people like that look, some people don't. I have no idea if that's going to go away. I have no idea if that's going to stay the whole time. I've had people tell me both. So I'm not quite sure which direction it's going to go. That's part of the reason why I wanted to try it myself and see what mine was going to do. Now there's a couple of pros and cons. Like I said, the pros are it's cheap. The sand and the dirt and whatever else you cap it with, super cheap compared to aquatic soil. Aquatic soil can be quite expensive, and it has good nutrients. So versus just doing something like pool filter sand or something like in this tank where I've got black diamond blasting media and then I have to put root tabs in it all the time, it's got good nutrients and it's cheap, and I don't have to necessarily mess with it all the time. Now the cons is it can be messy. Every time you pull up a tank or a plant or anything like that, rescape it, you're gonna kick up a lot of debris, a lot of dirt, and it's gonna make the water really murky. So if you're looking to grow plants for like profit and constantly harvest out of the tank, or you're constantly moving things, I wouldn't recommend it. This is definitely more of a set it up and leave it style tank. But you know, you do you in the end, but just be warned that anytime you mess with it, it's definitely going to make it a lot messier. And if you've got any sort of bottom feed, I have coolie loaches and they haven't been kicking up a lot of dirt, but if you've got like some really big cories or something, if your cap isn't very thick, you're going to be kicking up a lot of dirt. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Another con that I read about was it can cause an ammonia spike towards the start. You have to kind of let the tank run a little bit. I haven't had this issue. Like I said, I stocked mine after a couple of days and I've been testing it and I haven't had any ammonia issues, but some people have, and so that's something just to kind of be cautious of and you know, research a little bit before. Now, the other thing that Trent told me when I talked to him about dirted aquariums was he said that the pros was he had seen better plant growth and better plant color out of all of his plants in his dirted tank than any of his other tanks. But the con was the first month or two, he dealt with a lot of algae issues from all the excess nutrients. That's another thing that I've heard about. Mine's only been running for about a week and I haven't had any algae yet. But I'm assuming in a couple days I'm going to start to get algae, and I'm curious on how long that period's going to be. But again, it's one of those, you know, you just kind of got, it's like cycling a tank. You just kind of got to get through it, get part of the thing processed. And I am using a sponge filter and I'm not doing Wallstad method, so I don't know how much that'll kind of help with that, or if it'll help at all. But that's another thing that's a kind of a con and a pro. You know, you get a lot of nice color, but there's a lot of nutrients, so it's definitely a con and a pro. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I'll definitely be doing updates on this tank. I threw some plants in it for now. Most of them are trimmed pretty short, so I want to see how quick they grow, what colors they do. I tended to put a lot more like not green plants because this tank's very green and I like the green, but I tended to put a lot more reds and kind of colorful type of plants. I've got red Luigia, I've got the it's a Bacopia, I think, but it turns kind of pink and red at the top. And then I've got a Catherine Boos, and I've got a darker Crypt Wendeti, not the green one, but I think it's the red one. And so I've got a lot more color in that tank versus like just green, and I want to see how well the dirt kind of brings that up. Let me know if you've done a dirted tank before, if you have any suggestions on how to set one up, any suggestions on maintaining it or anything like that. I'm really curious on everyone's thoughts on it. This is one of those things I've been wanting to play around with for a long time. I just haven't, and I was redoing the tank for the 3D background that you can see in the video, which is going to be coming to the channel soon. I'm going to be doing a video on that, I promise. But I figured this was the time to go ahead and try it since I was pulling a whole tank and redoing everything. This was the time to try a new substrate, especially since this is a tank that's smaller and I could try it on a smaller scale. And so that's pretty much it. So if you're new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. We put videos out on Fridays. If you want, hit the bell notification so you get notified every time I upload a video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.